One. Hey, welcome back to another one of the Rock Fantasy Files interview series on the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. I got to spit it out here. I'm your host, Stephen Keeler, and today I am here to chat about the brand new album that's being released very soon from Intranced, titled Muerte Y Metal. It's out on High Roller Records on June 7th of 2024. And welcome to the show. Who am I chatting with today?
Hey, what's up, Steven? James Paul Luna here, vocalist for Entranced.
And where are you joining us from today?
I'm in Pasadena, California, just Van Halen country.
Okay, cool. And of course, let's talk about the band Entranced. And well, maybe we'll start off with the band. How long have you guys been around?
Yeah, we started in about April of 2022, and
Okay.
so we're just coming up on just celebrating 2 years now.
Is this your first album that you're putting out, or this is a sophomore effort, or?
No, yeah, this is we did an EP, a few songs for an EP in 2022, and this is our first full length, or like first actual album.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the album. The title is Muerte Y Metal. Am I saying that correctly?
It's actually in Spanish, Muerte y Metal.
Muerte.
Yeah,
Okay.
Muerte y Metal, which means death and metal.
Excellent. And let's talk about the new album a
Sure.
bit. So what have you got to say? What are some tracks that stand out, or if you want to go over some tracks with us, talk a little bit about it?
I think one thing that kind of stands out from all my previous bands and previous projects is that we included some Spanish language stuff, and even the opening track is in Spanish, Reyes de las Tinieblas, which is kind of a call to some 80s Spanish metal stuff like V8 or V8 from Argentina and Ángeles del Infierno from Spain, but kind of calls in some of those references. But overall, it's kind of like got like Boys Are Back in Town, vampire rock and roll kind of vibes in it.
Cool. How many tracks are on the album?
There's 10 tracks, with one of them being like an intro, like sound sound design kind of track.
And are do you have any singles from the records that you're
We've
putting
got
out?
3 singles. Yeah, we just released our third single about 10 days ago. So the first one that came out was the title track, Muerte y Metal. Kind of has like almost somewhere in between Armored Saint and Dio kind of vibes. And then the second track we released was Switchblade, which was actually an old track from one of my old bands that I had written that we didn't end up using. It's probably written in like 2007 when I was in this band called White Wizzard. Right before I was going to start my previous band, Holy Grail, we had this track that we didn't end up using, and so dug that one up from the archives and re-recorded it. And it's kind of got like a boogie rock kind of feel with a bit of kind of that old British metal sound mixed with a little bit of Thin Lizzy with the twin lead parts in there. So, and then the third one we released most recently is that first track on the record, Reyes de las Tinieblas.
Okay. And you have a video out for that one, correct?
No, we actually haven't released any videos.
Oh, I saw like a lyric video, maybe is what I
Okay,
saw.
that was for the title track. Yeah,
Yes, it was. Yes, that's correct. Okay.
Muerte. Yeah, Muerte y Metal.
So who else is in the band? I guess we want to talk about everybody else is jamming with you in here.
Yeah. So this band started with Philly and Ben, and approaching me to like kind of start a new project. And Philly is our guitarist, Philly Bibiano, and Ben Richardson is the drummer. And we just started the project as a three-piece, and then Philly played all the bass on the EP. And then in the course of like starting to play shows, we teamed up with Nico Staub, who's actually from Argentina, and he kind of spends his time back and forth in the U.S. and Argentina. And so, yeah, that kind of completed the fold when he joined. But also, it was funny because we had a jam like on the World Cup day, that the day that Argentina won the World Cup. We were all hanging out, and that's when we asked him to join the band. So it's kind of like easy to remember that date, and just like a great celebration.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, well, I listened to the preview, of course, it came through the email, and we set up the interview. And I mean, I'm hearing a lot of like 70s, 80s in this record. Of course, I guess we ought to describe, what do you think this album, what genre of music is it for someone that's never heard your band before? What would you describe it as?
I would describe it as just kind of like heavy metal, just
Okay.
in the sense of like when it's that. I mean, I really love that era of. I mean, I love hard rock, 70s hard rock, like UFO, but then even bands like Riot and stuff, where it's like there's this era where like it didn't quite fully become like a full commercial juggernaut, but it was still like hard and had groove to it.
Mm-hmm.
So where like heavy metal still had a lot of hard rock and groove, and even almost like funkiness to it. Like you'll hear that in a lot of like say like Thin Lizzy or even UFO, where there's like there's still like a groove to it, and especially a lot of Judas Priest, like almost like disco beats in it, you know. So we're just like bringing in that element but with of course like 2024 like modern day stylist of like production. And so for me, it's like that era when like the late 70s, early 80s, when it was like hard rock was becoming like full force metal. That's like
Mm-hmm.
kind of my favorite era, you know.
Definitely like traditional metal. I could hear a little power metal in there too. Might remind me a little bit of Firewind at times, maybe.
Okay, cool.
Just my point of view coming off of
Yeah.
it. And I guess I was gonna talk what like your influences and what some of your musical history. You mentioned a couple bands that you had played with before. Let's hear a little bit about, maybe let's start out. What got you into doing metal, and what were the first couple, what was the early music you were exposed to that influenced you?
I think for me, I was I mean, to be honest, when I was in high school, and I'm gonna date myself a bit, like in the 90s in high school, like I was a bit turned off by like Metallica, to be honest, because like all the jocks were into Metallica at that point. It was like all like, you know, post Black Album, and it was just like a different era. But once I heard like Ride the Lightning and Kill 'Em All, I was like, oh my God, like this is way cooler than what those like jock dudes are listening
Yeah.
to. And it kind of opened up my mind to like, oh, so there's like earlier metal that's not like this tough like meathead kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And um but I was always super into like Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, of course, like 70s rock, especially like the British. I don't know, something about the British rock. I think because my dad was like a big Beatles fan, always playing Beatles music. Something
Okay.
about like British song production and British writing really caught my ear. I mean, my family's Mexican, so like there was also like Mexican music that would play around. But for me, it was mostly like getting into like Sabbath and Zeppelin and Deep Purple, and then progressively getting into like heavier and heavier music. One really like important moment was like when I started playing in bands with like older guys that were like 10, 13 years older than me. It was like, oh wow, we're like really playing, like we're playing bars that I wasn't quite able to like legally be playing in yet, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And but they turned me on to like, I remember one time we were jamming in their one of their basements, and they put on a cassette tape of Entranced by the Scorpions, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like this guitar sound, the singing, the production, it was just like so intense and so wild and over the top that's when I was like kind of hooked on that era of like, and that's probably why we called the band Entranced, because like I love that record. I love that era of like Uli John Roth
Mm.
era, Scorpions. Um, and then when I heard like King Diamond for the first time and Merciful Fate, like Don't Break the Oath record, I was like, oh my God, like what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
So that whole era just like really inspired me into like the old school metal, like high vocals. But I think my favorite singer is still probably Rob Halford. It's a tough call between Halford and Dio, but like
Mm-hmm.
those two guys are just like great technique, great like catalogs overall on everything they've done. Like so yeah, that's I mean I could go on about bands and influences, but I think I'll leave it at that, you know.
So yeah, I just got to see Mr. Rob Halford on the tour. I saw the first night of the North American tour in Connecticut, and then I saw the next to last night up in Albany, New York. I'm based in Middletown, New York, about 60 miles north of New York City. And boy, it's just a privilege to still see Rob on stage. And you just like we're so lucky to still have him when you think of all the greats that are gone and see him performing up there. And I mean, the new stuff to me, the last two albums from Priest are so great and so heavy. You can't stop listening to me. Invincible Shield and Firepower were two very strong albums, and it's great to see the Priest on the road, as he said. The Priest are back, right?
Yeah,
That's what Rob says. So,
absolutely.
what's some of your personal history? What other bands have you been with before you came out, joined or formed or joined with Entranced too?
Yeah, so I was in this like kind of underground, kind of LA scene band for a minute. It was called Jet Fuel that we just kind of like self-released some stuff, but out of that we like the bassist and the drummer and I started a project called White Wizzard, and that kind of took got a little bit of like that was the MySpace days. We had like our songs on
Mhm.
MySpace and it was kind of starting to take off. Like people it was generating a good bit of a buzz, and we did a little tour up the coast and put out an EP called High Speed GTO, and then um, just creative differences. We ended up like wanting to, like me and a few of the guys wanted to start something heavier and faster, like a bit more thrashy, a bit more power metally, and that's when we started Holy Grail. But in that process, Earache had signed White Wizzard and put out that high speed GTO EP, and it was featured on a comp of called like Heavy Metal Killers with bands like Enforcer and Voltax and Bullet, like a bunch of like bands
Mhm.
like that beginning wave of like old school heavy metal.
Yes.
And that I think that was probably like 2006 or 2007, and so it was kind of early in that wave of what's now like a whole movement called new wave of traditional heavy metal.
Yes, yes, the new
Uh,
wave of traditional heavy metal. Yes. Yep, yep,
yeah, and
yep.
so I was involved in that band, and then started Holy Grail, which we kind of wanted to bring influences from the old school, but still have intense shredding, like and a lot of influences from our guitar players, um, like Eli and James LaRue, the first guitarist. It was like a lot of like cacophony, or I think it was like a lot of Ingve,
Yep, yep.
and then just stuff like I'm drawing a blank here, but yeah, like and then also like Judas Priest, Megadeth stuff,
Hmm.
and it was just like a little thrashier, but still having old school metal. And that band, I mean, for about 12 years, we went pretty solid with that band. And then towards the last few years of that, it was just like really kind of slow moving. And I think there was differences between like management and label and stuff that just kind of really like kind of grew stagnant. And then around pandemic, it just kind of fizzled out for me. And so
Hmm.
I was just like kind of like taking a break and looking for a new project. And that's when Holy Grail kind of went on pause. Other guys got other projects going on, and then I started Entranced in 2022.
Cool. So you've got a little time under your belt with heavy metal.
Yeah.
Holy Grail, I'm quite familiar with them. You did some U.S. tours with them. Were you ever in the Northeast? You come to New York with them or no?
Yeah,
Not,
pretty often. Yeah, we did. I think 2010 or 2011, we did a tour with Blind Guardian. Um,
wow.
we came
Okay.
here with Amon Amarth. We
Oh,
did.
I probably saw you with Amon Amarth. I think I've seen just about every Amon Amarth tour going. Right?
Yeah,
'Cause that
and
sounds
then,
so familiar. Of course, everything scrambled in my old brain of mine.
yeah, I'm sure. And then we did a tour with like Eluvati and 3 Inches of
Wow.
Blood. And then,
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, those were like. Oh, and then one of our biggest tours was probably the Metal Allegiance tour, which was like Anthrax, Exodus, High on Fire, Municipal Waste,
Wow,
and
yeah, that's a
World.
strong one.
Yeah.
So cool, cool. And what label was Holy Grail on? Or maybe
Prosthetic.
it was on Prosthetic. Okay, yeah, I know Dan fits over there pretty well from
Oh yeah,
back in
Dan's
the
great.
day.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. And so let's talk about current day. We'll come back to the present. Do you have, and we're talking about the new album, is that coming out on CD and vinyl along with digital?
Yes, and cassette. So
And
CD,
cassette. All
vinyl,
right.
and cassette.
Cassettes seem like they're coming back. It's getting like I've had a few people coming to my record store, even in the last few weeks. Hey, what do you got in cassette? I thought it was coming back a few years ago, but now I feel like I'm getting more people talking about cassettes again.
And I don't even. It's popular with like I say the kids, but I don't know like what where they're playing these cassettes because
Yeah.
cars don't.
No, no. I mean, most cars don't even have a CD player anymore,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I mean, as
Uh,
you're in the car, you got your YouTube, your Spotify, or whatever, digital. But yeah, but cassettes, I guess you can still get cassette decks. I guess I should know since I own a record store. But I mean, I sell a lot of records again, which is good.
yeah,
So,
I know. My buddy Jarvis from Night Demon, he runs like Iron Grip and he manages a bunch of bands
mm,
like Satan and Midnight and
Satan are great.
yeah, and Sirith
Midnight.
Ungle.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Sirith Ungle. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and he started selling tapes and also selling these little tape players that have Bluetooth. So I don't know how it connects, but it's like a Bluetooth portable tape player.
Oh, so you can play the
Yeah.
cassette and it plays through your car stereo or whatever.
I
Yeah.
think so, or you can like Bluetooth with your headphones. I don't know how it works, but there's new technology. I think they're bringing back tape machines and portable tape
That's
machines.
interesting. I was wondering
Yeah,
about that because, of course, we all had our Walkman back in the day, right?
yeah,
Then we had the Discman,
yeah,
then the iPod, as we go through life. And thank God that like selling vinyl and at least selling forms of music came back because that's why I opened my store in '85 was to sell music. So,
that's great.
I mean, we turned into primarily a head shop for many years, but we're back selling a lot of vinyl now. Knock on wood. What's even more surprising is like FYE are opening up again, which I was like FYE were dead in the water, like, and now they have like records and stuff again. I was happy I was the only record store in town, but like they just opened an FYE in town again. I'm like, but it's way smaller than it used to be back in the day. If you're familiar with that chain.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, and I think there is something that is just kind of lost in just like streaming and digital. Like
Yeah.
I think people are starting to recognize like just the coolness of like holding a physical record and like the big album art, the big foldouts. Like
Like
I mean,
holding up your Abbott
yeah,
record, yes.
yeah. I've been collecting records for a while, so I get it, and I'm glad I held on to them and didn't sell them over the years. When I was like,
Um,
I always kept my records, no matter how broke I was. Like
and now you've got records that are probably worth a lot of money because I mean, I'm one of the guys that way back in the day figured, well, they're like the 8-track. I'm never going to use these again.
yeah,
And I sold my collection pretty much and sold it in my store. I can remember we actually cut up our record bins and took them off to some guy to burn in a fire pit or something because we weren't selling records anymore. The CD was in, and now we built record racks back, and it's like the old is new again.
yeah. No, it's cool. And yeah, so to answer your question, yes, it is coming out vinyl. We got a few variants of vinyl and on CD, and then on cassette tape as well as digitally. And High Roller Records is putting that out, and we're also distributing it through our own like Bandcamp store as well.
So you're saying a lot of Spanish release with the Spanish with the music on there. Are you going to be? Do you have a presence in South America? You do have a drummer from there, obviously, but is this like something where you guys are going to go on tour down there? Or, my other question is, are you going to tour North America soon?
We're kind of talking about maybe doing something in the fall, but it seems kind of late right now because if it doesn't happen, and it's too late to book it ourselves right now. So
Yeah, yeah,
if anything, we're hoping for something in the spring of 2025 to get
cool.
some North American presence. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because like we have one Spanish track on the record, and then and we start the album with one Spanish track, so it might be misleading, but the rest is in English. And but yeah, it's we do hope to get down to South America. We have some friends down there that have offered to help book. We just haven't made any plans yet until we see, because I mean, our home is predominantly up here in the States, so we'd like to hit the States first, you know.
Cool, cool, cool. Well, I wish you all the luck in the world on this release coming out, and hopefully we'll get some to stock at Rock Fantasy, and everybody go out and support Entranced and check out the new music, which will be out. What is that? I guess it's next Friday then, right?
Yeah, June 7th.
We're
Yep.
filming this on the 28th right now here, and so we're looking forward to checking out from a new band some new music, and keeping it metal. Death in metal, right?
Yeah, yeah, death and metal. Yeah, Muerte Y Metal. Yeah.
But it's not death metal.
No, it's not.
Well, you have to listen to it to see what you guys like. But when I listened to it, I thought it was very, very entertaining. It sounded very good, what I got to listen to yesterday, preparing for our interview here. And how can we find you on the web? Of course, if you're on Facebook, you're on the social media, Instagram, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, we're Intranced official, and so it'll be on Bandcamp. It's intranced.bandcamp.com, and then Instagram, it's at Entranced official, and then same with Facebook, it's Entranced official, and that's
And
Entranced with an I, like Entranced,
like Entranced
Scorpion.
from the Scorpions.
Yes.
All right, where you said was kind of the inspiration for the name.
Yeah.
It's the Scorpions, and of course, great Scorpions albums back in the 70s. Another band that's still going live, and I guess they're doing a residency in Vegas. I guess you could hop in a car and drive over and see them. I'm far away.
Yep.
Yeah,
Totally.
cool. All right, I guess we'll wrap up this little episode. I think I'm right about my time quota from the
All right.
label and all that. It
Great.
was really nice to meet you, James Paul.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get to see you out here on the Northeast. I even book a little club in Middletown now. It's very
Oh,
small underground club. So if you want, reach out to me if you're planning something that you're booking
oh,
yourself.
great.
All
Yeah,
right.
and I'd love to check out your store. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, it'd be great to have you out here. If you like pinball machines too, we got 53
Oh,
pinball machines in
oh,
the shop.
awesome. You
So
got me. You
it's
got me.
pinball and heavy metal, right?
That's great. All right, Steven. Thank you, man.
Yep. Take care.
You too.